Okay, let's begin with our prayers. Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Gnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katamayam Dadati Svapadati Shri Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Kantana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Saraswati Devi Pranamami Hari Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sakatata Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today's chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized. So let's begin. Before we begin, let's pay our obeisances to Sri Radha Govinda. So chapter 1 sections. Did you all get a chance to read chapter 1? Have you all already formed your groups?
No, Mataji, I don't think we discussed.
Okay, not yet. Okay. Okay, Prabhuji. I saw some message on the groups. Okay, anyway. So chapter 1 sections. So this is what we did. Introduction. Preparations for what? Arjuna's doubts. So summary of chapter 1. Arjuna's reasons for not wishing to fight. Do you remember his reasons? What were the reasons he gave? Why he did not want to fight? What were the reasons he gave? You can just unmute and give me the answers. Hare Krishna. Hope you are able to unmute.
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji. Can you give me the reasons, Mataji? Chaitali Mataji is here. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Mataji. So sorry.
Any one of you can answer.
So,
you can help each other. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he so Arjuna said that if the ancestors of the die, basically, then there is no one to guide the youngsters, and then that can lead to more wrong things being done by the successors, and that can lead to destruction of dynasty.
Destruction of family traditions. Thank you, Prabhu. There are 4 more reasons. Can anyone answer?
Compassion.
Compassion. Then
Indecision.
indecision.
Sinful reactions.
Fear of sinful reactions.
Yeah. And destruction of dynasty.
Prabhuji already said. The other one was no enjoyment. So in chapter 1, let's continue. Arjuna's reasons for not wishing to fight. Chapter name is Observing the Armies. So compassion, enjoyment, no enjoyment, that's what he said. Destruction of family, saintliness and fear of sinful reactions, indecision. Arjuna surrenders to Lord Krishna. That is in chapter 2. We're going to learn about that. Lord Krishna reveals transcendental knowledge. So in chapter 1, what we saw was misidentification of the soul with the body. We saw symptoms of the problem. He's facing some problem right now. So we saw all the symptoms. And he gave 5 reasons. Like no enjoyment. If I, fight this war, whom will I enjoy the kingdom with? Once everybody is gone, even if I win, what's the use? I won't be able to enjoy. And then he said compassion. He had compassion for what? Can you elaborate? He said, my family is the object of my compassion. And then again, fear of sinful reactions, because he said there are elders like Bhishma, Dronacharya. How can I fight them? That's a sin. So all these reasons he gave. So let's move on. And then in this chapter, we'll understand, we learn about surrendering to the Guru. That's what Arjuna will do now. What are the reasons for Arjuna to surrender to the Guru? We'll learn that also. In the material world, there are a lot of perplexities, right? We face so many problems. At every step, there is a problem. Maya is so bewildering. So, material world is created like that. It is not a flaw, it is a design. Material world only is a problem. So, what happens? We all have material qualifications, and Arjuna also had material qualifications. He was very well qualified for the war, but that all those qualifications are not enough to solve the real problems. So all our material qualifications are not going to help us in solving our real problems of life. And as we can see, he's crying here. So we also get bewildered while making so many choices. And here in this chapter, through Bhagavad Gita, we understand so many things like this. Only a guru, a spiritual master, a spiritual authority can help us overcome these perplexities and misidentifications. How does he do that? He gives us transcendental wisdom. Through his transcendental wisdom, he helps us. Once we take his shelter, he will provide us engagement, and with the intelligence, and our faith will increase in Krishna, and we will also develop knowledge. So that we progress in our spiritual life, and everything becomes clearer. So, and also Krishna speaks the Sankhya Yoga in this chapter. Sankhya means analytical study of matter and spirit, Atma Tattva. So he gives a lot of information about characteristics of the soul. And this helps us, this info will help us gain perspective on our own problems, and through proper discrimination of Atma Tattva and Jnana and all this, we can overcome our own perspective. So that's the significance of all this, what we are studying. So we'll also understand our constitutional position. Once we understand whatever is whatever Krishna is explaining, we slowly understand our constitutional position. So in chapter 2, this is what we'll do. Arjuna's further doubts and his surrender. Jnana, fight, there is no death for the soul. Karma Kanda, fight, for gains come from dutifully fighting and losses come from not fighting. Buddhi Yoga, Nishkama Karma, fight but without any reaction. Sthita Prajna, he'll give us information about Sthita Prajna. Okay, how does a Sthitadir Muni behave? How do they talk? How they walk? All this information. Fight becomes fixed in Krishna consciousness. This chapter is a summary of the whole Bhagavad Gita. It has some, information about Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and there is also a glimpse of Bhakti Yoga. Slowly from Karma Kanda, the tone changes. Krishna says, you fight, you can enjoy. There is enjoyment, please fight. Okay, he'll talk like that. That is on Karma Kanda platform. But slowly, after some time, he'll say, whether you enjoy or not, you fight. Do your duty, even if you're not enjoying. Slowly, he's taking him towards spiritual elevation. We have to perform our duties because that is the only way for spiritual elevation. Okay, Arjuna's further doubts and his surrender. After Arjuna continues to express his doubts about fighting, he surrenders to Krishna for instruction. Okay, who is going to recite this shloka? Sanjay Uvacha, verse 2.1. You can raise your hand and recite. Chaitanya Mataji is unmuted. Anyone else? Okay, Deepa Mataji, Hare Krishna. Please recite, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Sanjaya Uvacha tam tata kripaya vishtam ashrupurna kulakeshanam visidantam idam vakyam uvacha madhusudanaha. Sanjaya describes Krishna sees Arjuna lamenting like an ignorant man and responds,
Hare Krishna Mataji. This is
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Tam tata kripaya vishtam ashru purna kulekshanam. Ashru means tears. Ishidantam idam vakyam uvacha madhusudanaha. Okay. Material compassion, lamentation, and tears, they are all signs of ignorance of the real self. Okay. Then, because who am I? What is self-realization? Where should we apply real compassion? Real compassion is for the eternal soul only. It's not for the body. So all this information we'll learn now. And here Krishna is called Madhusudana because he killed the demon Madhu. Now Arjuna wants Krishna to kill the demon of misunderstanding that has overtaken him in the discharge of his duty. Verse 2.1. Seeing Arjuna depressed, Lord Krishna thus spoke. Material compassion, lamentation, tears are signs of ignorance of real self, eternal soul. What is self-realization? Compassion should be applied to the soul only. Analogy, saving dress of drowning man. Okay, we'll learn this. Material compassion. Chapter 2 discusses self-realization, analytical study of soul, material body, explained by Lord Krishna. Here, there is an example here, right? The gross material body is compared to the outward dress. The material world is compared to an ocean. Okay, and say somebody has fallen into this ocean. How do you save such a person? We cannot show compassion to the dress. We cannot save a person fallen into this kind of ocean, ocean of nescience, simply by rescuing his outward dress. So, if you, that's how it is, right now for Arjuna, he is showing compassion for all the bodies because soul is eternal. So Arjuna is showing compassion to the dresses, and as a Kshatriya, he is lamenting like an ignorant man. That's what I am going to tell him now. So this kind of conduct was not expected from Arjuna. I'll mute, somebody is unmuted. So Lord Krishna is speaking Bhagavad Gita to dissipate the lamentation of all the ignorant souls. Through Arjuna, we are going to learn. So Krishna instructs us in self-realization by an analytical study of the material body and the spirit soul. Okay, here. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets, but to infamy." See, Lord Krishna is referred to as Bhagavan throughout Gita. This says Bhagavan Uvacha. This verse, you see any verse you pick, whenever Krishna is speaking, it says Bhagavan Uvacha. Before we understand whatever Krishna is saying, it's very important to understand who Krishna is. Right? Otherwise, we'll think, okay, two friends are talking. This friend is advising that friend. This opinion is of a common person. He's just giving his opinion. That's not how it is. Krishna is Bhagavan. Okay, he is the ultimate in the absolute truth. Okay, and this absolute truth is realized in 3 phases of understanding. You must have learned this in the 18 days course also. Firstly, it is Brahman, or the impersonal, all-pervasive spirit. Second realization is Paramatma realization, which is a localized aspect of the Supreme. Paramatma who lives in our hearts. He lives in the heart of all living entities. And then Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the final realization, complete. Only a Bhakta knows that. So the example given is of a sun and its 3 different aspects. And the sun itself, sun planet itself. If a person is studying only the sunshine, he is a preliminary student. He is attracted to the sunshine, he is studying only the sunshine. That is compared to the Brahman realization. And if he understands the sun's surface, oh, there is more to sun. There is a sun surface, sun disk and everything. He is little more advanced. And if a person can enter the sun planet, that is the highest realization. So here, what happens is a person who has the highest realization, he knows the personal features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Who is the absolute truth? What is it? Everything he'll know. That is the final goal. So who are the top transcendentalists now? They are the bhaktas, the devotees, because they are the ones who really understand Bhagavan properly. We cannot separate sunshine, sun disk, and the sun planet. But what happens is the person who understands Krishna in these different stages, they are on different platforms. They are not equal. That's how it is. And Parashar Muni, who is the father of Vyasadev, he gave the description of the word Bhagavan. Do you know what he said? How do you describe the word Bhagavan? Who is Bhagavan? Deepa Mataji, your hand is raised. Do you want to answer this question? Or anyone else who wants to answer also, please?
Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mataji.
Okay. Anyone else? You can just try. Bhagavan means? What did Parashar Muni say?
Who has all six opulences?
Yes, Mataji. Do you want to list them?
Yes. All knowledge, all wealth, all
Others also can try if you have heard about this.
All fame,
Okay.
all beauty, all strength, and all knowledge.
Okay, Mataji. Thank you so much. All riches, all strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. There are many people who are very rich, very powerful, very beautiful. They are so famous and they're so learned. And you may find people who are very detached also. But no one, including Brahma, Lord Shiva, Narayana, no one can claim that they possess all this in fullness. So no one can possess these opulences as fully as Krishna. Only Krishna can claim this because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many references for this. Even Brahma Samhita says that. It says no one is equal to or above Krishna. You know the first verse in Brahma Samhita? Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. He is the source of both the super soul and the impersonal Brahman. So we have to understand Krishna this way. So whatever he says, we have to take very seriously. Okay. O son of Pritha, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. Krishna and Arjuna are actually related because Pritha is Kunti and Kunti is Vasudev's sister. Vasudev, who is Krishna's father. And Prabhupada writes, if the son of a Kshatriya declines to fight, he's a Kshatriya in name only. If the son of a Brahmana acts impiously, he's a Brahmana in name only. They're all unworthy sons of their fathers. So Krishna does not want Arjuna to become an unworthy son of a Kshatriya. That's why he's saying this. If Arjuna abandoned the battle, he would be committing a very shameful act. That's why he said that such an attitude did not fit his personality. Krishna considers Arjuna's non-violence and all this, magnanimous attitude, all this as weakness of heart. Arjuna said, "O killer of enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona who are worthy of my worship?" It's a general etiquette that people like Bhishma and Dronacharya are not to be offered even a verbal fight. If they attack also, they should not be counter-attacked. So what happens is sometimes they are very harsh, right? Elders are very harsh, but we should not treat them harshly. These are all some manners that we follow. So how can Arjuna counter-attack them? Would Krishna ever attack his own grandfather or his own teacher, Sandipani Muni, Ugrasena? So these are the arguments Arjuna is giving us here. It would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers, even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. A minute. So he's saying, see, as per, according to scriptures, okay, what happens is according to scriptures, if a teacher or a guru, if they do not, are actually performing an abominable action, we can actually abandon them. So it is allowed actually. If they have lost the sense of discrimination, it's okay to leave a guru, continue following such a guru. So here Bhishma and Drona were obliged to take the side of Duryodhana because of his financial assistance. They were working for the kingdom. So they had to do that. They were siding with Duryodhana, but actually they were siding with Adharma. They were on the other side. So they have lost the respectability of teachers and elders. Because of this, Arjuna thinks that since they are superiors, how can we even enjoy the kingdom if I kill them and enjoy the kingdom? It's like enjoying the spoils tainted with blood. That's what he says. But actually, they are on the other mixed side. That does not matter. You can actually not take that into consideration. That's what Krishna says. Because you remember, there were many instances where they did not support dharma and all, right? They are right now. They're actually like we have many examples like Vibhishan, who left his brother and joined the other side. Even Karna could have helped Pandavas. They could have come on this side. Krishna personally went and requested him, and he was supporting Duryodhana for his own reasons. So, nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. Indecision. A person takes decision based on the mode he is situated in. There are 3 modes of material nature. Do you know what those are? What are the 3 modes of material nature? Hare Krishna, Steve Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Sattvic, Guna, and Tama.
Yes, Prabhu. Sattvic, correct. Tamoguna and Rajoguna. Mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance. A person who is in mode of ignorance cannot decide. He'll be always undecided. He'll be like confused. And a person in mode of passion, he'll make decision impulsively. He'll act without thinking. And a person in mode of goodness, he'll introspect. He'll discuss with some expert. He'll approach some wise people and try to find a solution for his problems. But there are also limitations in this kind of approach. Even if you go to a person who is an expert, it will not be a correct, complete solution. A person is Shuddha Sattva. What does he do? He makes decision out of inspiration. He will approach a spiritual authority. So only a spiritual authority or a spiritual master can give us a perspective of Shastras. Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, they'll never go wrong. So what will happen? That is what Arjuna is doing now actually. He will surrender to Krishna because Arjuna is very aware of his feelings. He's actually very bewildered right now. So he's going to surrender to Krishna. And he knows fighting is the duty of Kshatriya, but he does not know what to do. He should fight or he should risk unnecessary violence or he should run away. He's quite confused. So, and he says, all this introspection he's doing, all these reflections, it also proves that he's a very elevated devotee, actually highly enlightened and great devotee because his heart is very soft. Not only that, he's saying, I'll go beg and live. I'll run away and go beg and live. That shows that, he's ready to renounce. That also shows it's a great quality for a devotee because he's born in a royal household. His desire to live by begging is a sign of detachment. Just like Lord Ram, when he was going towards the forest, he did not feel any sadness or anything. He just walked out. He renounced that. But you see, all the others were crying. There's a difference. He was not under illusion. So it's like that. So now, unless and until our senses are controlled, there is no chance of elevation to the platform of knowledge. And without knowledge and without devotion, there is no chance of liberation. So Arjun was actually virtuous in that way because he was considering all these different options and he was thinking all, he was not fighting because I'm angry, that's why I want to fight. I want revenge, that's why I'm going to fight. He's not like that. He's very soft-hearted. Okay, Arjuna said, now I am confused about my duty. I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. This is the verse where the friendly relationship between Krishna and Arjuna takes a turn. Arjuna surrenders to Krishna as a disciple. He accepts him as his spiritual master. Talks between friends may not be taken seriously, but when a spiritual master is talking to his disciple, it's a very serious business. There is an element of surrender and humility. Accepting a guru means you have to hear from him, you have to follow all the instructions. So now actually Krishna is like a teacher. Krishna is a teacher and Arjuna is going to clear all his doubts. What are the reasons for surrender? Again, because this material world is full of perplexity. So that's the reason we have to surrender to the spiritual master. And as you can see, Krishna is actually smiling. In all the slides, everywhere you see, Krishna is smiling. He is not under illusion. He is not, Maya cannot touch him. But Arjuna is the one who is in tears. Why does he smile? Why is Krishna smiling at Arjuna? Can you guess? Can you give us some reasons? You can just take a guess and answer. It's fine. When Arjuna says, I have surrendered unto you and I accept you as my guru, you see a smile slight smile on Krishna's face. Why do you think he smiles?
Maybe he's smiling because he feels like Arjuna is finally ready to listen and learn.
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, Prabhuji, that's actually correct. There are some reasons. First thing is he's smiling at the foolishness of his disciple. And we also are like that. Think about Arjuna. Until and unless the perplexity was so high, it was so bad that he had to finally surrender. We don't surrender until and unless it is like that bad, where we really need a guru. Okay. And he's also amazed at the kind of bewilderment that can arise at these critical moments in life, because Maya covers that. Maya covers one. She can put Arjuna, persons like Arjuna also under so much, stress. So only a bona fide spiritual master, who is the disciplic succession, can give us proper guidance for executing the purpose of our life. So actually, Arjuna did the right thing by accepting Krishna as his guru. Arjuna continues to give reasons for not fighting and finally surrenders. Okay, by nature's way, material activities are source of perplexities. It's like forest fire. We'll discuss all this. Then surrender to bona fide spiritual master. Krishna is the original spiritual master. Then brahmanas and self-realization. One who is interested in self-realization, like a brahmana. And who is not interested is called a krupana. They are called misers, krupanas. So it's like skin disease, overly affectionate to family, society, country. Okay. So what's happening here? Let's discuss a little. Krishna is the original spiritual master, and Arjuna is the first student, as we can see. And all Vedic literatures, every Upanishad, all this Bhagavatam, everything you see, it is giving us advice to approach a bona fide spiritual master. So only then we can be free from all this. And then he's also talking about misers. Who is a miser? You know who is a miser? What do you mean by Kripana? Who is a miser?
Atheistic people.
No, Mataji. Human life is very, very precious. It's very valuable. So we should use this life to solve the real problems of life. What is our real problem? We have some real problems, not the problems that we face every day, but our real problems are the cycle of birth and death. That's the real problem. Nobody can stop us from going through another cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. But a person who does not utilize this opportunity properly is called a miser. He'll be very attached to his family, society, country, and all this. He'll be wasting time there. And it's all like a material conception of life. So they think they can protect their family, just like Arjuna wanted to protect his relatives. That's why those people are called misers. So Arjuna understood that actually his affection towards his family is what is stopping him from fighting. So that is why he has finally surrendered. Okay. And we also know Krishna is actually the supreme, and he'll give him the right answers. Jnana, fight, there is no death for the soul. Okay, who is going to recite this verse? Does anyone want to recite this verse? You can try. Manohar Punjabi Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Askoyan Anavaskos Cham Pradna Vadam Cha Vastase Gatasan Agatasam Cha Nanu Shanti Padunditaha. The Supreme Personality of God had said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Does anyone else want to chant this verse too? If you want to chant, it's okay. You can say, okay? Only Manohar Punjabi Prabhu's hand is raised. Okay. This is Ashocyan Anvashochatvam. Okay. Ashocyan Anvashochatvam Prajnavadamscha Bhashase Gatasu Nagatasuscha Nanushocanti Panditaha. Krishna actually is in the position of a teacher right now. He's actually chastising Arjuna, calling him indirectly a fool. He's saying, you're talking like a learned man, but you do not know that one who is learned, a very learned person, he knows what is body and what is soul. He does not lament for any stage of the body. So the body is born and it will be destroyed one day. So the body is not as important as the soul. And here he is talking like this, right? So that's what Krishna is saying. You know what is a learned person? Who is a learned person? So a person who knows this is actually a learned person. So in later chapters, it will become clear that knowledge means to know matter and spirit, and also the controller of these two, matter and spirit. 2.11. Lord Krishna, taking role of a spiritual master, chastises Arjuna. Krishna chastises Arjuna, looking like a learned man, but he's a fool spiritually. Who is a learned person? Learned man differentiates between matter and spirit, and also the controller of both. He knows difference between body is temporary, and soul is eternal. He does not lament for body, whether it's dead or alive. Body is born and destined to vanquish. Therefore, body is not as important as the soul. He differentiates in soul, body is temporary, soul is eternal. Okay. Here, verse 2.12. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. Okay. So Krishna actually clearly saying that he himself, Arjuna, and all the kings who are assembled on the battlefield, all the soldiers, they are all eternally individual beings, and the Lord is eternally the maintainer of the individual living entities, both in their conditioned life and in their liberated situations. So the individuality of the soul existed in the past. We are going to be, continue living like this. We have our own individuality. So we existed in the past, we exist now, and will continue existing in the future. So there is no cause for lamentation for anyone. That's what Krishna is trying to get at. But the Mayavadis, they have their own theory. They say after liberation, the individual soul, it gets separated from Maya, and all the souls are going to merge into the impersonal Brahman, Brahma Jyoti, and all the souls are going to lose their individual existence. But this is not supported by Lord Krishna, as we can see. A common man can come up with his own explanation for so many things, but we cannot take that, because common man has 4 defects. He is not as perfect as the Lord. No one is equal to Krishna. So we should understand that Lord Krishna and Bhagavad Gita both are not ordinary. Okay, even great acharyas like Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, so many acharyas, they all confirmed that this spiritual individuality is actually, souls are eternal. They're going to be always existing. So that they have already confirmed. And some people are envious of Krishna and they want to come up with their own explanation of Bhagavad Gita, but we should not listen to all that. We should not hear that also. Mayavadi explanation of Gita is very misleading. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, he's forbidden us to read commentations given by Mayavadis. He says, Mayavadi Bhashya Sunila Hoya Sarvanash, means please do not listen to that. Then we'll never be able to understand the real mystery of Bhagavad Gita. There is one more verse. Who would like to recite? Does anyone want to recite this verse? Yes, Prabhu. You can go ahead. Sai Shreyas Krishna.
Yes, Mataji. Dehi nosmin yada dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tada dehandara praptir dhiras tatra na muhyade. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So what was the first reason Arjuna gave? Compassion. Every living entity is an individual soul. Body keeps changing at every moment. Sometimes body manifests as a child, sometimes it manifests as youth, sometimes as an old man. But the spirit soul does not change at all. It lives in the body. The spirit soul is an observer actually. The soul actually sees the body undergoing all these changes. And what happens at the time of death? This individual soul will finally get a new body, transmigrates to another body. When that happens, when birth, death, all this happens, a self-realized soul will not be bewildered by all these changes. Will not be shocked because he is self-realized. He knows, this is something that's going to happen. So any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of the individual soul, the super soul, and the nature of both material and spiritual, will not be bewildered. And such a person is called a Dhira, sober man. He will never be deluded by changes of the body, because we can see around us when people get wrinkles, they get so shocked, they cannot handle that. They go for so many treatments. Bodies are changing all the time. Our body changes, but people get little bit bewildered by all that. But a Dhira or sober man is never, shocked by these things. So such changes of body, enjoyment, suffering, all these take place because of our own karma. According to our own work, things happen to us. But Bhishma and Drona, they are noble souls. Even if they die, they're going to get spiritual bodies because they're very noble, or at least they'll get heavenly bodies where they can enjoy better. So there is no cause of lamentation. One more verse. Who would like to recite? Hmm. Who is going to recite? Ashish Prabhuji, you are unmuted. Do you want to recite?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay.
Matra Sparshastu Konteya Sitoshna Sukha Dukha Da Agama Payayino Nityas Tamstitik Saswa Bharata. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, ocean of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. While performing duties, a person has to learn to tolerate happiness, distress. Happiness, they are non-permanent. Like we say, this too shall pass. It's just a matter of time. Things keep changing. According to Vedas, there are many examples. Like a person is required to take bath very early in the morning, even in January and February when it is very cold. A person who wants to abide by these religious principles and who wants to follow all these rules and regulations, he will take a bath. Even if it is cold, he will not worry about it. Same way, mother, Prabhupada gives an example of a mother. She does not hesitate to cook even in summer, when weather is so hot. She's still sitting in front of the hot stove, making, preparing meals for the family. So they are all doing their duties in spite of all these inconveniences. So that's how a Kshatriya is supposed to fight, whether it's his family or relative or friend or whoever it is. If it is his prescribed duty, he should not deviate from his path. That is what it is. Okay. So all these religious principles, everything is set according to Varnashrama Dharma, and he is supposed to fight. And because only when he follows all these rules and regulations, he will get onto the platform of knowledge, and only by knowledge and devotion we can attain liberation. And he also says Kaunteya, and he calls him Bharata. All this. Kaunteya means his great blood relationship from his mother's side, is Kunti's son. And he also calls him Bharata, which means from his father's side, he has a great heritage. So great heritage means more responsibility. It brings a lot of responsibility. So he has to be even more careful in the discharge of his duties. He cannot avoid fighting. Okay, one more verse. There were some hands raised. You can keep your hands raised so that we can go. Real me pad. Please unmute. Right. Somebody is named themselves. Yes.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Yam hina vyatayante iti purusham purusharshaba samadukha sugam dhiram so mritatya kalpate. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Hare
Krishna. Yam hina vyatha yantyeti purusham purusharshaba samadukha sukham dhiram so amrita vyaya paya kalpate. See, who is fit for liberation? There is some qualification, right? Who is fit for liberation? Any person who is steady in his determination for the advanced stage of spiritual realization. It is like, say, for on the material platform, say there is a board exam coming and we are really determined, I want to do my best. It's like that. If somebody wants to advance in spiritual realization, they'll be very, very determined. They'll tolerate distress, happiness, everything. So that's the kind of eligibility we require for liberation also. And this Vanaprastha, if you see, that also takes a lot of, it's very painful actually. Sannyasa, Vanaprastha is the fourth stage of life when you are about, it's like retirement from active family life. Vanaprastha also and Sannyasa also, both are very painful, but still people do it. I mean, it was actually recommended, and those days they did it also. A sannyasi, He's very serious about making his life perfect. So he takes up sannyasa. It's not easy. He has to sever his family relationships. He has to give up connections to his wife and children, and he has to tolerate all kind of difficulties. But he will do it. He's very adamant about it, and definitely his path to spiritual realization will become complete. So Krishna is advising Arjuna to tolerate, persevere in the discharge of duties as a Kshatriya, even if it is difficult to fight with the enemy, because they are family members, beloved persons, and to establish dharma, you have to fight. What he's saying, you must do it. And we have a lot of examples of perfect sannyasis, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the best example. He was a perfect sannyasi. He took sannyasa when he was 24. He had everything pretty much. He had a very nice life, and he had a very young wife. His mother also was dependent on him. His wife was also dependent on him. In spite of that, he renounced all this for a higher cause. So that's an example of a sannyasi. And here you see, just by holding the Japamala is, going towards Goloka Vrindavana. I see this image, how beautiful. Ashtanga yogis and all these different people, they try very hard to see Krishna. But just with this chanting Japamala and, just becoming Krishna conscious, is easy to attain Krishna. So that's what this image is signifying here. It's telling us that those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, the material body, there is no endurance, and of the eternal soul, there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both spiritual world, material world. So by nature, we know the body is ever changing. It keeps on changing. Even medical science admits that by actions and reactions of these different cells, cell growths happen, and then by old age, things are changing. So body keeps changing, but soul is eternal. It does not change. That's the difference between matter and spirit. Everyone has all the seers of truth and impersonalists and personalists all agree about the existence of this condition. But as you can see, Krishna's first instruction to all of us is the living entities who are bewildered because of the influence of ignorance. How do we remove ignorance? We are not bewildered by the influence of ignorance. So what is ignorance? How do we remove ignorance?
By chanting Hare Krishna mantra, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Yes, that is the first instruction given to us. By re-establishing our eternal relationship with God, by understanding our relationship between Krishna, with Krishna, and to understand the difference between ourselves and Krishna. We are parts and parcels of Krishna. The living entities are part and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And by understanding this, that we are subordinate, and what are we supposed to do with that relationship? By going further in this, by understanding all this, there is no difference between the energy and the energetic, but the living entities are never equal to the Supreme Lord. So much information, so much knowledge. By gaining all this, by progressing in this spiritual journey, we slowly become, our ignorance goes, we slowly become enlightened. So it's very important again to have a spiritual master who can actually help us with this. Can another shloka here, who would like to recite?
May I, Mataji?
Deepa Mataji is also raised. Okay. Okay, Mataji, go ahead.
Avinashi tu tadvidi yena sharvam idam tatam vinasham avyayashraya shasya na kaschit kartum arhati. That which pervades the entire body you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul.
Hare Krishna Mataji. So this verse explains the real nature of the soul which is spread all over the body. Actually, Vedic literature gives us this information about the constitution of the atomic soul. The influence of the atomic soul is consciousness, which is spread all over a particular body. The individual consciousness is the symptom of the soul. So consciousness is the symptom of the existence of soul. If there is consciousness in the body, that means there is soul in the body. So we all are conscious of our own pains, right? The consciousness, like for instance, I know what is happening within my body, the pains, pleasures, whatever I'm feeling, everything. But I cannot understand what's happening in the other person's body. So it's limited that way. That's why we are called embodied souls. But Krishna is not like that. He knows what is happening in each and every body. He's different. His position is very different. And even, this soul, super soul and the soul, both are in the heart of a living entity. But science cannot prove that. Because of that, they say, there is no soul at all. Many people just conclude that there is no soul because of that. Because we cannot experiment and try to find where is soul. We cannot see soul. It's so tiny. We cannot even see. So that's why they conclude like that. And it's also said that the energy center, all the energies of our body are originating from the soul, which is actually medical science also affirms that the energy for a body is coming from the heart only, but they cannot say it is coming from the soul. That cannot prove. We have to just accept this fact because we just accept whatever Vedas tell us like that. Because you read about red blood corpuscles and oxygen is carried from the heart, and when oxygen is being carried from the heart, the energy is also coming for our existence from the heart, and the soul and super soul play a very big role in that. The material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end, therefore fight. Material body is perishable by nature. So we cannot maintain the body forever. It's just a matter of time. We don't know how long the body can survive. Right? We all have different, life term. Like some people can live for 100 years. We don't know. Maybe tomorrow, day after. We never know how long the body can sustain. So, in spite of that, soul is so small that nobody can kill it also. Which is nobody can kill the soul, nobody can destroy the soul, and only the spirit soul acquires all is material body according to karma. And that's why it becomes very important to observe all the religious principles, because we don't know what kind of body we're going to get next. So spirit soul is the one that maintains the body. Neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it slain is in knowledge, for the real slays not, nor is slain. Now we are all embodied. So what happens when an embodied living entity is hurt by weapons? The living entity lives, is not killed, only the body is destroyed. This does not mean we can just go and hurt others or encourage animal slaughter, or this verse states that only the body is destroyed. In spite of that, Vedas say we should never commit violence to anyone. No one can kill the body of anyone without authority. That's abominable. So Arjuna is not doing anything whimsically here, because he's being engaged in killing for the principles of religion. He needs to understand that. Okay, one more verse. Who is going to recite this? Deepa Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचिन नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्य शाश्वतो यं पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. the board. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. So here, for the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. Does not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. Is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and immovable. Is not slain when the body is slain. The body is subject to 6 kinds of transformations. Do you know what are those 6 kinds of transformations? Body undergoes 6 kinds of transformations. Do you know those? So soul, this slide gives us information about the nature of the soul. Soul does not deteriorate like material things. It has no byproducts, nothing. But the body is subject to 6 kinds of transformations. What are they? Somebody has raised. Okay, Steve Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hi, are you referring to like the birth, death, old age, disease, that kind of?
Now let's see, there are more people who have raised. Deepa Mataji, would you like to answer this question?
Yes, Mataji. It takes birth from the mother's womb. It remains for some time. It grows. It produces some effects and gradually vanishes.
Yeah, gradually dwindles and at last.
Dwindles and vanishes. Yes.
Yeah, and the soul does not become old. That's the reason, when you may see a very old person, but inside he'll feel himself to be the same spirit as he was in his childhood or in his youth. So we all feel the same inside, right? Outside, when we look in the mirror, we see our bodies are changing, but inside we feel forever young. So that's the reason, because the soul does not become old. How can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Everything has its proper utility, and only a person in knowledge will know how and where it can be used. Just like that, violence also has its own utility. There are many examples, like, for example, the judge who awards punishment for murder, he orders violence, right? He says, punish this person, hang him, or whatever. That is according to the courts of justice. So we cannot blame him. He just does his duty. So it's like that. So there is violence there. And also there are actually putting the murderer to death is actually beneficial for him, because he's been punished and his sinful reactions are over. That way, it's actually beneficial for him. So Krishna is ordering fighting here. It is for the supreme justice, for the administration of justice. So this violence is actually permitted. When Krishna is saying, you get up and fight, that means it is done for some administration of justice, and it is not a sinful reaction. And another example is a surgical operation where the surgeon takes a knife and cuts the body and see blood and all that, right? There is some violence there also. But actually, the doctor does not want to kill the patient. He's trying to cure him. So this war is actually going to fix a lot of things. So that's why this fighting which Arjuna will be executing according to instructions of Krishna is with full knowledge. So there is no sinful reaction. Okay, one more verse. This is another verse here. Who would like to recite this one? Deepa Mataji again. Every one of you, please try, because if we don't try, we'll never learn. As you recite more and more, it will become very easier for you. What happens is, after some time, without your knowledge, you will be reciting here and there, and it just comes like that. Recite 2-3 times and you know the shloka. It's like that. So, Sai Shreyas Krishna Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Vashamshi jirnani yada vihaya navani grihandi naro parani tada sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani samyadi navani dehi. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies giving up the old and useless ones. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. And this soul and the super soul, they are compared to two birds on a tree. This individual soul, which is bewildered by Maya, it is very busy enjoying the fruits of the material world. And the super soul is just looking at this bird. When is he going to turn and surrender to me? When is he going to go back home? So finally, when this jiva, the soul, which is struggling very hard on this tree of material body, finally surrenders to the other soul, looks at him and accepts him as a spiritual master. That's when all his lamentations will come to an end. So that's what Arjuna is doing actually. He's taken shelter of Krishna, and all his lamentations, ignorance, everything will be gone. Okay. There is one verse here. Who is going to? Chaitali Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Nainam chidanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavaka, na chainam klidhayantepu, na shochayati maruta. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Soul can never be cut into pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. No weapon can kill the spirit soul. Swords, flame weapons, rain weapons, tornado weapons. It seems there were tornado weapons also those days. We have not heard of those things. And the nuclear weapons of this modern age, they are considered fire weapons. Those days, there were water weapons which would counteract the fire weapons. So there were all kind of weapons those days also. But Mayavadis, if you hear all this, we know that soul cannot be destroyed at all. Nothing can destroy the soul. But the Mayavadi philosophy, they have their own explanation, right? But they cannot explain how the individual soul came into existence. Was it just cut from the original super soul? They cannot explain that, because Bhagavad Gita and all these scriptures, they are giving us information that we are eternally separated parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, right? Super soul. But they cannot give that. They cannot explain much. This is all because of their illusory energy. They cannot understand this. So we have to understand all this information from Bhagavad Gita and from scriptures coming from bona fide parampara system, from proper guru who can really explain it properly. This is the verse here. Who would like to decide? You can keep your hands raised so that, again, Deepa Mataji. Anybody else? Manor, okay. Manor from Punjabi Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Achidyoyam adyoyam akildyo sosaya evacha nityaya sarvagata stunur akalo yam sanatana.
Okay. Soul is unbreakable, insoluble, neither burned nor dried, everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, eternally the same. So the individual soul is never expected to become one homogeneously, like theory of monism and all. It is very difficult to apply that. After liberation from material contamination, also the soul is eternal, but they prefer to, this Mayavadis and all, they prefer to remain as a spiritual spark in the Brahma Jyoti, in the effulgent rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But an intelligent soul will want to enter the spiritual planets, Vaikuntha planet. They would like to go and associate with the Lord. And they say that fire can sterilize the soul, but that actually does not sound correct, because fire also cannot destroy the soul. Nothing can change the soul's nature. Nothing can change. Okay. Soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. So who is going to recite this one verse here? Who would like to? Ashish Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Avyakto yam achintyo yam avikaryo yam uchyate tasmad evam viditvenam nenu suchitam arhasi. Soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Thank you, Mata.
Hare Krishna. It is so invisible that it is. We cannot even try to see the soul through the most powerful microscope. Also, it's not possible. So to just understand whatever knowledge we are understanding about soul from Vedic literature. That's all. You just take it as a fact. There's no way we're going to experiment and we cannot find soul. It's very difficult to find. So we hear and learn from the spiritual master. Okay, soul, more characteristics. Unbreakable, insoluble, neither burned nor dried, everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, eternally the same, invisible, inconceivable, immutable, the eternal soul. If, however, you think that the soul will always be born and die forever, you still have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. Okay, there are two classes of philosophers. The one class will believe in the existence of a soul. There is another class which does not believe in the existence of soul. They are called atheists. Like there are so many, just like Buddhists, they're called Loka Ethikas, Vaibhasikas. They don't. They think when the material body is gone, decomposes, the soul also, we don't exist anymore. They're all atheists. So now, even if that is true, there's still no cause of lamentation, right? Because some material scientists, they believe, oh, everything happened because of some combination of physical elements and some chemical reaction happened. At certain stage, there were some life symptoms that happened, and that's why we see all these people existing and all these creatures existing. They have their own theory. But even say there is no soul, okay? And who is going to cry for a bulk of chemicals? Nothing. If all these people just die, whoever is on the battlefield, they are just chemicals and some, because of physical and chemical reaction, they just exist. So there is no need to lament. So, and they actually, he also calls him Mahabahu. Mahabahu by saying, oh, Arjuna, you're a Kshatriya, you belong to the Varnashrama Dharma. So luckily you're not an atheist. So he does not accept this theory of monism or anything, but he's telling, even if you don't believe in the existence of soul, don't have to worry. Just, there's nothing to lament. Either the soul exists or does not exist. You can still fight fearlessly. There's nothing to worry. That's what Krishna is saying. One who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death, one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the discharge of your duty, you should not lament. We are going through one cycle of birth and death, and again there's another cycle, and so many things happen. But it's the duty of Kshatriya to go ahead and just fight all this. Whatever his duties are, he should not give up his duties. He was discharging his duties properly until now, but now suddenly he's under illusion. This is all because of Krishna's arrangement. So this battle of Kurukshetra is also will of the Supreme. So all these questions, whatever Arjuna is putting forward and whatever Krishna is saying, is all for us to understand. We should understand that this battle is for the right cause, and sometimes duty is like that. It may sound very painful, it would be very inconvenient, but still we have to discharge our duties, proper duties. All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? See, for example, you take a skyscraper, a big building, and then if for some reason it is dismantled. What happens? It remains as atoms it is dismantled. You can't see it as a skyscraper, but everything still exists. So from unmanifested state, it was manifested, and again it went back to unmanifested state. There is no loss of energy, there is no loss of anything. So that's what Krishna is trying to say. So material body actually has no factual existence in relation to the eternal soul. So why lament? Again, for the changing of dress. That's what is Krishna's point. Birth and death cycle continued. philosophers do not believe in existence of soul. They are atheists. And those who believe in the existence of soul, there are two classes of philosophers. Material existence before creation, unmanifested stage, and then creation happens, and there is the manifested stage. So when Brahma actually destroys everything, we still exist, but everything is unmanifested. And again, based on our own karmic accounts and activities, we'll get a different body. And if we are really highly elevated souls, then we'll enter the spiritual planets. So at that point also, we still exist. Unmanifested stage also, we do exist. So from ether, air is created. From air gives rise to fire, fire gives rise to water, and water gives rise to earth. And earth, from earth, there are many varieties of creation. Lord Krishna's argument is, what is there to lament? Soul is amazing. Look, describe, and hear. Some look on the soul as amazing. Some people who are amazing look on the soul. Some look on the soul, which is amazing. Okay, looking just like that, some people think, wow, it's like, imagine such a tiny soul which we cannot even see. The same atomic particle is in a big banyan tree also, it's in an elephant also, it's a very tiny creature that we see under the microscope also. So that is just amazing. Some hear about amazing soul. Some describe it as amazing. Soul is same in size, but so many different kinds of bodies exist. You can see around us only. Imagine just in a small space, there are so many living entities. We think population is exploding. There is so much going on in the world that we think, people should have only, a couple should have only 2 children. There's so many problems in the world and all that, right? We talk about population all the time. But if we look around, the grass is also a soul, the tree is also a soul. There are so many souls in the air. We see all kind of flies, mosquitoes, whatnot. There are plenty of souls around us. Tons of souls, thousands of souls, crores of them. Okay. Who descendant of Bharata? He who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any living being. The same example of a judge and a surgeon. Analogy. Analogy for unnecessary violence is not justified. Judge awarding capital punishment is actually the right thing. And again, surgeon performing operation. So actually, you know what? We finished half the chapter. The remaining half, it gets even more interesting. Krishna will describe Sthitadir Muni. He's going to give us a lot more information. So this is a very long chapter because it kind of has so much information. Krishna is speaking about so many things, and even Arjuna is kind of confused. In the end, he'll ask, should I renounce or should I fight? Because he says, keep yourself away from abominable actions. And then he will say, raise above the 3 modes of material nature. So Arjuna is thinking, abominable action. Isn't war abominable? Why is Krishna asking me to fight then? He'll get these kind of questions in his mind. So we can discuss that tomorrow. We'll do the rest of the chapter tomorrow. We can do that. So I'll